Goeiemiddag dames en heren en collega's. My naam is Lize-Marie Sahd. Ek werk hier by die skool vir rekeningkunde by die universiteit vir 4 jaar, einde van my 4 jaar. Ek was 6 jaar in audit voor dit. Ek kan besluit of dit 'n goeie of 'n slegte ding is. So my agtergrond lê in audit en ek tans 'n lektriese in rekeningkunde. Maar vandag se aanbieding, nou praat ek Afrikaans. Dis hy. My aanbieding is eintlik in Engels, ek sal nou oorgaan. Basically the product of 3 years of research that I've been doing in mobile technology and its influence on business. It was supposed to be a 2 years master's degree, and then life happened and it turned into 3 years. The advantage of that is I had another year's worth of data to add to the research. Yes, so what was supposed to be 2 years turned into 3 years. Advantage is it added more time for me to observe the trends as well. So that's what we're going to look at today. I don't know how many of you actually saw the slides as you were coming in. It's just a background thing to give you an idea of what's going on in the world in terms of technology and the proliferation of technology in our lives. So I've taken, not only from there, I've taken some key statistics to introduce the presentation, just to give you an idea of where we are in terms of technology use and how technology is changing the world we're living in. So the starting point is really the internet, because that is what ultimately changed the way we live, the way we work, and the way we interact. And you'll see that in 2000, this is worldwide, in the year 2000 we had approximately 361 million internet users. Fast forward 14 years, that number goes up to 3.036 billion. That's an increase of 741%. This increase in users of the internet has been changed, or has changed the world we live in on various levels. And I've taken some of the slideshow that was going on as we were coming in. I've taken some of the highlights there just to illustrate to you how everything is actually changing. You would have seen in there that the US Department of Labor estimates that the new young person entering the job market today is going to have an average of 10 to 14 jobs in a lifetime. So firstly, that's vastly different from the last 2 or 3 generations of workers that we had. We had the baby boomers and the era or the generations before that. Loyalty was everything. You start your job and you get your golden watch at the end and you retire from that job at the end of 30 or 40 odd years. Even more interesting than that is that the top 10 in-demand jobs of 2013 didn't even exist in 2004. So not only is the person changing that's doing the jobs are changing. There are new jobs surfacing every year. And you would have seen in the slideshow, we are currently preparing our young workers for jobs that we don't even know is going to exist in the future. Okay, so this is changing the job market dramatically. Another very interesting point was that there are 100 billion Google searches each month. That's 12 times, that's 12 times the world population. So we're living in a society where data is very easy to come by. The quantity of data, I'm not saying anything about the quality of the data, but the quantity of data out there is unmeasurable, and it's just accumulating every single day, every single week, every single month. The interesting thing for me there is 100 billion Google searches. Who did we ask before that? They call it BG, before Google. I remember doing my school projects at school, and my school project at school from the Wêreld Spectrum. You remember that encyclopedia, and if it wasn't in the Wêreld Spectrum, I couldn't do my project on it. I could go to the library, but it was normally so late minute that like the night before the library closed. So if it didn't come from the Wêreld Spectrum, I couldn't do it. And that's not how students are learning anymore. So everything's changing. And then on a more social level, to illustrate how we've brought technology into the very core of who we are and how we operate, we've brought it into the family and we've brought it into the marriage. 1 in 6 couples that married in the USA in 2013 met on the internet. Okay, my husband must not leave me because I wouldn't know how to meet someone via WhatsApp and Facebook and all of that. Okay, so to illustrate to you that the world really is changing on every level, in a job level, in schools, the way we think about information, what information we need, and on a more social level. Just two other very interesting items that I thought would illustrate the point is that if Facebook were a country, it would be third largest in the world, just behind China and India. And you would see with 500 million users, that's quite a lot more than the 315 of the USA. So Facebook as an entity is huge, and it's influencing a lot of things. The other very interesting thing, and this is an up-and-coming trend, is the Internet of Things. How many of you know anything about the Internet of Things? It's a term that they've been using to talk about how devices are going to start communicating with each other via the internet. But with devices, I don't mean cell phone and tablet and laptop. I mean toaster and fridge and geyser. And this is by 2020. We're in 2014 already. They estimate 50 billion devices are going to be connected with the internet. So this is you sitting at work.
But you need electricity.
So you do. You do need electricity for that. We're going to get to the South African context soon. Maybe applicable to discuss again there. So this is a scenario, or the term used for you sitting at work getting a message from your fridge going, I think you should buy milk on your way home, because the last time you bought milk was 7 days ago and it would probably be off by now. Or your geyser sending you a message going, you switched me off this morning, remember when you go home to switch me on again or you won't have a hot shower tonight. So that's what's coming, 50 billion devices, and currently we're estimated 7-point-something billion people. So 50 billion is a lot of devices. Okay, back on subject though. This is background. That's how the world is changing. But we're here today to talk about mobile solutions and mobile technology. So on a mobile level, in 2012, it was the first time that they estimated mobile devices surpassing the number of people on Earth. At that stage, estimated at 7 billion, probably still 7-point-something billion. Mobile devices estimated at 7.3 million and estimated to reach 9.2 million by 2019. Billion, excuse billion. But I say million. Billion. And the number keeps growing. 120 million new mobile subscriptions during the first quarter of 2014 alone. 120 million in the first quarter alone. And it keeps growing. And it keeps growing almost exponentially. What's more important than the fact that this number is growing so fast is actually the composition of these mobile devices. Remember, we're with mobile devices now. The mobile device shipments that they estimate for 2015, the composition is really what this is the foundation of what this presentation is based on. As I was saying, the numbers are growing exponentially, but that's not really the big thing. What is interesting is the composition of the mobile devices that are being shipped. And they estimate that the mobile device shipments in 2015 should be around 86% tablets and smartphones and 14% PCs. By PCs, I mean mobile PCs. So that's your laptop, your notebook. 14% is already low, and they're projecting that 14% of tablets, PC mobiles, meaning laptops and notebooks, to decrease even more. So as the years go by, that 14% is going to shrink. And the smartphone, tablet, and ultra-mobile market is going to grow. So when I'm talking mobiles and I'm talking into the future, I'm basically talking smartphones and tablets, because they can start doing what your average laptop could have done anyway. From a South African perspective, we still use BlackBerry. Apologies for those of you that have BlackBerry, but the rest of the world have kind of moved on. We still visit banks. We stand in the queue at banks. Internationally, that's a phenomenon that's going out the window. People are using banking apps or internet banking, and we still send a lot of SMSs. In terms of those statistics, we are more traditional, and we are maybe a bit slower than the rest of the world to fall on the mobile bandwagon. But if you look from an African perspective, in 2000 we had 4.5 million internet users in Africa. That's not many. But fast forward to 2014, 298 million. That's a 6,499% increase. So we're catching up, and we're catching up fast. Back to mobile specific Specifically, of the 37 million adults in South Africa, there's an estimated 36 million or 97% that own a cell phone or use a cell phone, and we have on average 2.4 mobile phones per household. Okay, so we are catching up and we're also jumping on the bandwagon. At this point, I think a lot of people feel like this, especially business owners. You see what's going on there in the world, the internet, the information, the mobile, all of it, and you almost feel like if I don't engage with it, it won't influence me. Not my circus, not my monkeys. I'll see it, I'll acknowledge it, but I'm not going to make it part of my business because I don't understand it. That's what a lot of people think. The unfortunate thing is, it's not really an option. You'll see why. If we look at who's driving this increase in mobile devices, and if we think about who's bringing mobile devices into the business, it's not the business. It's the employees. They call it the consumerization of mobile technology, meaning it's the consumer that's driving what they're currently calling the mobile revolution. The consumer being the employee of the business, the customer of the business, and the client of the business. They're doing this in two ways. Firstly, they're using one mobile device for both their private or personal life and corporate work. So they're bringing in their own, here it is, I bring this to work, it's synced with my work email, and I get my work email on this. Management is sitting here, so I'm just saying, I don't think this was approved formally by management. There has been no communication on this. But this is what people are doing, and that's why we're saying it's the consumerization of IT. It's the employee that's driving it. A second way that they're driving it is a lot of people these days have more than one device. I've got only 3 pictures of 3 cell phones there, but by that I don't mean cell phones only. Often we have a tablet, a cell phone, and a laptop. And we're using all 3 of these for personal and corporate uses and functionalities, and we're doing it interchangeably. And that's how we're bringing, you and I are bringing mobile technology into the business. So again, important to stress that this is happening whether it's approved by the enterprise or not. Very few enterprises out there. The presentation got a bit long, so I took out the slide, but something like 24% of enterprises internationally have any kind of mobile policy because they're doing that. But it's happening, whether you have the policy or not, whether you acknowledge it or not, and that's why this is a field of research that really needs to be looked into. So at this point, is there any good news? Okay, so it's happening, everything's changing, my employees are changing, social life is changing, data is changing. What's the good news? In terms of bringing mobile technology into the business, employee productivity must be top of the list for most people that are formulating policies and deploying these solutions in business. They estimate that 25 hours working from home will equal about 40 hours working from office. As a mother of a 1.5-year-old, I don't know. And they didn't specify whether this is for moms with toddlers and normal people. But take Mina, my toddler, out of the equation. I could well see how that happens. You don't have the interruptive phone calls. You don't have the people coming into your office for a lot of different reasons. You don't have the email switched on all the time. The other thing is they are predicting around a 63%, which is very high reduction in sick leave if people can work from where they want to work when they want to work. Okay? Because sick leave is ultimately if you can't work between 8 to 5 because you're ill, you put in sick leave. But if you can work from 5 onwards, no sick leave. Other benefits, communication. There's just so many diverse options in terms of communication if you can do it anywhere, from anywhere, at any time, using the device and the application of your choice. So the depth of communication increases, but also your options. Quality of information. Paper-based information is falling away, as most of us know, but that's increasing the integrity and usefulness of our information, mostly because it's more timely and our decision-making is improving. Processes, your business processes, your normal sales processes from order to delivery is being streamlined and automated, taking a lot of time, lag time away from order to delivery, or at least order to invoice. A decrease of costs, definitely a possible benefit of mobile solutions. I'm weary on this one because it also comes up as a significant risk. Okay, so there are two ways of looking at it. Looking at it solely from the benefits perspective, cost reduction in terms of hardware investments. We're not buying as much of this anymore because people are using this to do their work. Okay, so a reduction in hardware costs in a lot of senses, leading to an increase in profit. Not only those types of costs, also because of the increase in employee productivity, better quality of information, so better decision making, better budgeting, more realistic budgeting, more timely decision making, and the streamlining of processes, all of that leading to a reduction in costs or an increase in profit. In terms of competitive advantage, as we looked at it in the beginning when we were looking at the stats, the world is changing. You need to keep up, you really do. And also this is what your client and your customer is starting to expect from you. They want to be able to access your website or your functionality from a mobile device, from their mobile device, because they can do it with other companies. So in terms of keeping a competitive advantage, very important for us to engage with mobile technology. Attracting and retaining staff, again I mentioned in the beginning when I was looking at the stats and the way the world is changing, attracting and retaining the right staff. Attracting to some degree because this is what your employee is going to come to expect. The interview process I think has also come a long way from 20 years back. And I think the employee being interviewed is taking a lot of power in their own hands, probably the Generation Y thing to do. But they are. And a lot of questions that come up in interviews these days from an employee's perspective is this. Will I be able to work from home? Will I be able to use my mobile device? Will I be able to this? So that's the expectation of the employee, that young employee that's going to change jobs 10 times. You want to try and retain that person if they're good. On retention, using mobile devices and being more flexible gives you a better work-life balance. Again, probably improving your chances of retaining the staff that you want to retain. Employee-driven innovation is quite interesting because this is called the consumerization of mobile technology. It's the consumer, it's the employee bringing it in. They are staying abreast of the mobile technology developments. They're staying abreast of the best applications to use for whatever functionality or operation they need to perform. They're staying up to date with the best technology, the best application, the best operating system to use actually for your business, for them to perform their own tasks. So the onus is almost taken away from the business and the employees running with it, but the business gets the benefit. Because the more productive the employee gets, the more it benefits the business, but they're not doing anything, the employees are running off it. So actually, here's the chance to just jump on the wave that your employees are on already. And employee safety and security. So this was an interesting one that I read, so I included it. Always being connected, and you're traveling for corporate services, the globalization of corporations, there's a lot more, I think, national and international travel in business. It's just a safety thing. You can keep tabs on your traveling employees as they go. There is, however, a problem. On the one side, we have the mobile technology in the middle. On the one side, in the business, we have those charged with governance, the decision maker, the strategists, the custodians of the strategic assets. On the other side, we have the IT department, the executor of the strategy. Okay, so they task, whatever the strategy is that management decide on, it's the IT department that's tasked with executing the strategy. They're the technical masterminds, they're the technology, the IT practitioner. The problem is that those charged with governance do not always understand the technology, and those that understand the technology don't understand what management or the directors want from them. And this is not really as much a miscommunication as I think it is a lack of communication. It's the same as my husband asked me every day of the week. I'll continue. Okay. Every day of the week he'll ask me, what are we doing this weekend? So he'll ask me on Monday and I'll say, we've got a wedding. Remember your friend Jeff's wedding, which is coming up this weekend. And then we have lunch with your parents on Sunday. That's what he'll ask me on Monday. On Tuesday he'll ask me, so what are we doing the weekend? That's how it carries on. On the odd chance that we're doing nothing on the weekend, I will say we're not doing anything this weekend, we're staying home. End of communication. What I mean is we're going to pack out the garage, we're going to clean under the stairs, I'm going to, you see, you know that. I'm going to cook Nina's food for the month and we are doing something else. And my husband hears, we're staying home this weekend, he hears, oh yeah, it's the Ryder Cup. I get to watch golf the whole weekend and I want to braai every night. It's not really a miscommunication. I just didn't communicate exactly what I expected of the weekend and neither did he. And that's the problem we're finding in business in terms of the directors and the IT. The directors say, we have a mobile strategy, go do mobile. I don't understand mobile, I don't want the detail, go do mobile. The technical department hears, oh yeah, let's do mobile, let's buy iPads, the latest iPad for every single... So it's not as much as they're not understanding each other, they're not communicating properly and confirming what they understand. I think the biggest problem here is that IT departments, and you can hear that I'm not on that side, I'm on the other side, but the IT departments tend to run as if there is no budget. So we're going to do mobile and it's iPads for everyone and it's expensive hardware and it's expensive software and it's MDM solutions and MEM and MIM solutions all over the show. Whereas that's not really what the business necessarily needs. So the strategy and what is happening is not joining up. So what's the solution? We can't put our head in the sand. We've talked about this. We need to understand our technology, we need to identify the risks that it leads to, and we need to formulate some kind of solution for it. In terms of understanding the technology, talking about the nuts and bolts, I'm going to go through this quickly, and I'm going to do this high level because we're not a bunch of technicians and we don't have to go into the technical detail. Firstly, obviously, you need the mobile device. We've spoken about this, basically your laptop, your smartphone, your tablet. Something to note for the business is that you've basically got 3 deployment models that you can use to issue or deploy mobile devices in your business. It's the COBO model, corporately owned, business only. That's the one where you get handed your cell phone, nothing else on the phone, only business, and those are the people that carry the 2 cell phones all the time, and when it rings they check which one it is, and if it's business they put it back. Okay, so that's the COBO model. You get the COBO model, corporately owned, personally enabled, so issued to you by the business, but you're allowed to do all your personal things on there as well. And then probably the most popular one, and specifically the one driven by this consumerization, is bring your own device, where the employee or the customer is simply bringing in their own choice of device, their own choice of operating system, their own choice of apps, everything. And they're using that for corporate and personal purposes with the blessing of the enterprise or not. So that's basically the 3 deployment models. In order for you to operate in a mobile environment and for you to leverage on the benefits, I guess, leverage the benefits of mobile solutions, you need to be able to wirelessly connect. And again, you have you can categorize these on a lot of different levels. What I went with in my research is probably the most basic, but it made the most sense to me, is your WAN, your wireless wide area network, your WLAN, wireless local area network, and WPAN, personal area network. So your WWAN is basically your 4G, your 3G, the HSDPA coupled with cellular technology. It's what we use when we're driving around and we're carrying on. Wi-Fi would classify as by far the most popular and most widely used standard for wireless LANs, local area networks, and your Bluetooth will fall into your wireless personal area network. Basically, well, it's a personal space. What you also need on top of the device and the connectivity possibilities is an operating system to run. The most popular at the moment is Android, followed by Windows Phone, believe it or not. Apple's sitting at 3 at the moment and projected to stay there for a while, which is interesting. People always think of the iPhone must be the most popular. I think the Android, because it's an open source operating system and it's used across more devices, is currently featuring much more than iPhone. And then the applications that's loaded, it gets loaded onto the device. Again, 100 different ways of classifying applications, but in the research that I did, I basically brought it down to about four types. Your information and content apps, reading the New York Times or the News 24, whatever, it's just content that you get, it's one-way communication. Productivity apps, this is what's going to be important for business. This is where you use a productivity app to perform your work, your business work. So accessing your business processes and your business software as well. There are transactional apps, your banking apps, and collaborative apps. Mostly social media, your Twitters and all of that. Another classification for the applications would be, and this is actually the important thing that businesses need to look at, is you get either a native app or a web app. In very layman's terms, your native app is the app designed specifically for the device and the operating system, and it resides locally on the device. You can imagine the problem there. If it's an iPhone app, you can only, or an Apple app, you can only use it on an iPhone. You won't be able to use it on your Samsung. So best user experience, definitely best quality, and you can design your better apps that way, but it's not usable across the board. And as you can imagine, everyone's bringing in their own devices. On the other side, you have your web apps. They look like a native app. You access them via the little icon on your phone or tablet, but it takes you directly to a website. You wouldn't know it, but you're in a website at the time. Easier to use, but not as great in the user experience department. Then there are three components worth mentioning. I call them the enabling technologies. They're what's really enabling you to tap into the benefits of mobile solutions. Cloud technology, I think by now most of us know what that is. Synchronization technology, where you sync, for example, your phone with your work PC. An update on the one's calendar automatically filters through to the other one. So there's no duplication of information, but there's also no missing out of information. The two devices keep syncing up with each other, and then virtualization technology. Also very handy in the mobile environment. So what are we exposed to? So we've talked about the benefits, and then we said, okay, it's all quite a bit overwhelming. How do we approach this? We said, understand your technology. Sorry, that was what this was about. Not in as much detail. We're not the IT practitioners. Call in your IT practitioner if you have to, but just kind of understand what's out there and kind of understand what your employees and your customers need and are using. And then we need to look at the risk. We need to identify the risks and address them. I've grouped the risks that your business is basically exposed to into two groups. The one is are the risks affecting the users, interoperability, usability, and connectivity and IT support. And then the risk directly affecting the business and its strategies, continuity, security, cost, and data ownership. Bearing in mind that a risk affecting the user is really also affecting your business, because if it's affecting your user isn't being productive and you're not getting value for your investment. So they're split in two, but they're really all risk to the business. So I'm going to spend just a couple of minutes looking at the detail of these risks, because I think that's where the core of this lies. You need to be able to identify where you are exposed in order to address it appropriately. Interoperability, I think we all know what that is. That's just the term used for different systems in one infrastructure able to intercommunicate and exchange data. And you can imagine the mobile environment being very heterogeneous. There are devices. We've spoken about this, all the devices, all the operating systems, the different data architectures, the different network architectures, the different applications, the types, and the development platforms of the applications. It just makes it really difficult to guarantee that all systems will always be able to talk to each other, because there's so many barriers and there's so many hoops to jump through. Another thing that's come up in terms of interoperability is because, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a little while, these mobile networks and mobile systems have kind of happened on an ad hoc basis. It's this thing caught almost all of us off guard. You almost saw it coming and then you didn't, and then it was there. So people weren't prepared for this. People weren't structuring their business systems from scratch to enable this wave of mobile use and mobile devices coming their way. So what has actually happened is that kind of a siloed approach, or an island activity approach has actually sprung up, where you have your big system and your infrastructure, and in there, your little silos of activities. And it kind of works on a day-to-day basis. Everyone gets done what they need to get done, but on the interoperability problem, everything and all these islands are not always talking to each other. So that's definitely a barrier in terms of interoperability. Usability, your user's ability to use your mobile device. Again, it sounds like, it sounds like your user's problem, but if your user can't use their device, they can't be productive and you can't reap the benefits. Okay, so it's almost your problem if they can't use their mobile devices to do what they need to do. Your typical barriers to usability, the small screens, unfortunately, they are working on this at a frantic pace, but the small screen of the, not to enlarge the screen, but to better the services and the apps and the information you can read on the small screen. Input mechanisms, this is a major barrier, especially for business processes. A lot of business software, you can imagine if you're trying to access accounting software from this. Okay, so SAP, doing SAP on this often requires mouse input, or you need the mouse input. It's what you navigate with, and now I only have touch screen. It's a major barrier to the use of mobile devices for business processes. Device specs, you just have more limited memory or storage size and processor speed, and then the application types, your web and your native applications, web applications not giving such a great user experience. One example here is something like Media24, actually any media publication designing, well, for media designing for electronic use. The employees, for example, or the employees, the designers for Media24 have been trained to design graphically and for electronic use, but for PCs and laptops. They weren't designing for the 10 centimeter screen and the 140 characters of Twitter. And that's what the current user wants. That's what that person that's going to change jobs 10 to 15 times, Googling 100 billion things every month, that's what that person wants. So businesses need to change the services they are delivering also to fit in with what people are using their devices for. In terms of connectivity, this refers only to your user's ability to connect to devices and your corporate service to access your data and functionality. The comparison here, and this is actually a very big problem, is your user, you and I, are comparing the service we get via wireless connectivity to what we got via wired, our normal Ethernet connectivity. We're expecting exactly the same, fast response time, pervasive service, on everywhere. That's the expectation we have. If I'm sitting no matter where and I take out my tablet and I want to access something, I want access and I want it right now. The problem is traditionally the wireless network was almost kind of designed as a lifeline. It was a temporary kind of get us through a difficult patch if something goes wrong with the wires. That was what it was traditionally there for. It wasn't designed to handle your core business processes and the core business functionality, but that's what we're expecting of it today. Okay, and it's falling short in a couple of areas. The other thing is just the complexity. I've spoken about that. The fact that these systems have kind of been built on half-old wired systems, trying to be developed into wireless systems, linking onto other wireless systems. It's become this whole complex network, and it gets very difficult for IT to support and maintain that. And just from a bandwidth perspective, the applications that your user will most likely access is very data rich, eating up bandwidth at an alarming rate, creating a lot of bandwidth bottlenecks, and this is also going to affect their ability to get the data that they need fast enough in time in order for them to be as productive as they need to be. In terms of IT support, the poor IT department, honestly, so many devices, so many operating systems, so many applications, no one can keep up to date with all of that. Yet you'll see danger expectations, yet that's what the employee is expecting from the poor IT department. So in terms of upgrades, there's no way to ensure that everyone's keeping all their software up to date, because it's a lot of the time it's not even the business's phone. It's the employee's own phone that they're using to access the network. Okay, so it's difficult to keep the updates. It's very difficult to meet the expectations. And IT simply isn't skilled or trained up enough in everything. And things are changing at such a fast rate. Even if they are upskilled today, they won't be in a month's time. So that's really a challenge. The risks affecting the business, I'm going to scan through this quickly as well. Continuity, this is simply the ability of your enterprise to continue its core operations, to keep it afloat, i.e. company does not go down in a time of disruption or interruption. And the three major threats in terms of mobility to the continuity of the business is your network connection, the security of your devices, and human error, basically referring to how easily you lose a mobile phone. So in terms of all three of those, your networks, your mobile phone, and your human error, the problem is the loss of data, the loss of service, the fact that if the wireless networks are down and you can't perform your critical business services, you might have a continuity problem. But more than that, even especially from the security point of view, is that it could have a major reputational impact on your business. You can imagine a bank launching a business or a banking app. If that thing gets hacked and numbers get out and names get out, that's the end of the bank. Or I would think so. Also on the slide that you can't see is the risk of data ownership. You're exposed there in basically two areas. The first one is we're losing control of our data as a business. I don't know who's got access to my data anymore, and I don't know where they're storing it. Are they storing it on their home computers, on their laptops, on their iPads? My data as a business is traveling everywhere, and people are changing it and working with it and accessing it. I can't keep tabs of it. I'm completely losing control in that sense. And the other one is intellectual property rights. Something that the other issue in terms of data ownership, you wouldn't believe that this was the technology presentation in all of this, eh? Yeah. Okay. Intellectual property rights. Interesting. Think about that, really, because data or content created by an employee from between 8 to 5 on their work desktop computer, it's very clear cut. That's the intellectual property right of the business they're working for. But what if they're creating content on their mobile phone on a Saturday afternoon from home? The lines get blurred. You're outside the office hours and it's not even on a device that they own. So now you need to think about that as a business and speak to your employees and work around that in terms of contracts if need be. Security is another big thing. You can imagine, I'm going to go through this quickly. We've lost a lot of time on the technical blunders. The fact that we lose mobile devices so easily. Loss and theft of mobile devices, big issue if there's company data on there. Wireless transmission or wireless networks, much more vulnerable than your wired networks in terms of being hackable, if you talk about it that way. From a software perspective, you still have your usual suspects. You still have your viruses, malware, phishing, worms, Trojan horses. Everything that was an issue for you for your desktop PC on your wired networks in terms of software, it's still there. But of course, the mobile environment will introduce their own issues. In terms of just the fact if your users are using Bluetooth and wireless, there are what they call blue snarling and Wi-Fi sniffing as two examples of ways that people access your phone via Bluetooth and wireless. You know that setting that you can do on your phone to automatically connect to a Wi-Fi when in the area? We think that's great because then as soon as you're in that area and you're connecting, whatever data you're using is for free because you're with the wireless. The problem is that's an unmanaged connection. You don't know who the manager of that connection and that wireless point is. So as soon as if you have that setting on and you move into an area where there's a malicious wireless point or a Bluetooth point for that matter set up, immediate access to your phone and immediate access to everything that you have on there. So it's actually better to turn that setting off, and that's the kind of thing that you can simply train your employees on that can already go a long way. Illegal tracking and tracing of mobile devices via GPS, because we're all enabling that on our cell phones. Malicious applications, they look legitimate, they might even function legitimately, but hidden in the background, that little devil app that accesses your phone, accesses the data, and obviously uses it for unauthorized usage. Jailbreak software, breaking open literally yourself or the mobile phone or tablet and getting access to absolutely everything from the functionality, the operating system, the operating system development platforms. You can change anything in that phone. And something else that I found interesting is keystroke logging. It's almost like a malicious app that can sneak its way onto your phone that does exactly that, keystroke logging. It records your keystrokes. So they get all your pins, they get your access codes, and all of that by using that application. So not a bad idea to turn off that automatic Wi-Fi connection. In terms of costs, it's straightforward, so I'm going to go through it quickly. Device costs, like I said, it could be a benefit, your employees bringing in their own devices, but if you're using a COPE or a COBO model, you will bear the device cost. Cost of keeping the network connection, cost of security, day-to-day operations, that can kind of add up. You know, you'll have to increase storage, so much more data and application and usage and bandwidth going through. So maintaining and supporting this, it's going to cost a lot more. And lastly, software costs, developing your applications, rolling them out and making sure they're working properly. So this is again how we feel, I think, at the end of the day. Okay, I've looked at the risks, I've looked at the build, the nuts and bolts of the technology, and we kind of feel overwhelmed at this stage. So what can we do? Remember, we're understanding the technology, we're identifying the risk, and we need to formulate some kind of control. We need to formulate something to help us address this. For starters, my best advice, I think, would be from everything that I read is just think about it, just engage with it on a very basic level. Who is using mobile devices in your business and what are they using it for? And maybe just jump ahead half a step and go, what are the possible uses? So if I have people using mobile technology in my business, what are they using it for? And isn't there something better that they can use it for? Can't I make them more productive? Can't I leverage off this using the technology already? So just think about it. Where could this fit in for you in your business and where can you benefit from it? And strategize from there. So not putting your head in the sand. From just thinking about it and identifying where you can possibly benefit, start formulating policies and procedures, basic things, but just bring it into your strategy and your plan for your business because it is going to affect where you go. Just stepping away from this and saying, oh, I'm not engaging with this, it sounds way too technical for me. That's the big problem we're sitting with, and you are going to fall behind. So start looking at policies, procedures, allocate responsibility and authority. That's very important here. Someone needs to take responsibility for something here. Otherwise, it's just going to continue out of control. And from there, you can meet your strategy. Just remember, on this policies and procedures thing, I'm not sure of everyone's background, but especially from a CA background and a governance background, having seen the King report come out and having seen the integrated reporting and all of those things come out, businesses tend to go in this checklist mode where they go, oh, so much of governance needs a checklist, and they go through the checklist, and it's not really a value-add exercise anymore. Committees for everything, meeting on a lot of things and marking the checklist, but it's debatable whether the business are really benefiting from that. So if you're going the route of doing a policy and a procedure, just make it count, make it value-add. Don't do it for the sake of having a policy. If anyone ever comes by and says, do you have a mobile policy? Yes, here it is. Make it count. So if it's the most basic one paragraph thing and that's it for your business, and that's fine, but at least you've thought about it and at least you're bringing it into the business. On a more operational level, and I'm not going to go through this in any detail, I just want to make you aware, basically 4 levels that you can go into more detailed controls. The previous slide, this is from a management governance kind of perspective. Identify the fact that this is happening, look at how you can benefit from it, but then on a more operational level to address the risks that we previously spoke about, you can look at it from 4 angles. Your device controls, and you'll see the first bullet point for each of the 4 blocks that I'm going to show you is training goes a long way. In terms of device controls, the loss and theft of devices, just have a discussion or training with your employees on how to use the device, what to do with the device, and how to secure the device. Communication controls, the wireless sniffing and the Wi-Fi sniffing and the blue snarling that I was talking about. Just training to your employees for your employees that these things exist even if they're using their personal mobile devices, maybe just showing them that this exists, making them aware of it so that they can switch off those settings, for example. Software controls, again, training goes a long way in terms of updating your software. Software that's fallen behind on the updates is actually a very vulnerable point for malicious attack in terms of malicious applications. So again, there are a lot of things, there's app wrapping, app blacklisting, virtualization, one-time password, there are a lot of detailed things, but for now we don't have time, so just the 4 basic ones, and then your data controls. Trying to secure your data on the mobile devices. Again, training goes a long way, but there are very specific techniques, data failing, poison pills, containerization that you can implement. But that's going really technical. It depends on where your business is at, it depends on your exposure, and it depends on what they're using it for. So again, in summary, ladies and gentlemen, the world that we're living in is changing. On a lot of levels, business, your employees are looking different, and they're going to keep looking different, and they start looking weirder and weirder every day the older I get. My students, I don't recognize them, and I don't recognize the way they learn and the way they engage, but that's the reality, and that's how it's going to continue. Okay, so that will be your employee and your customer as well. It's changing basically because of the infiltration of the internet and data and all of that. And that's leading to the consumerization of these mobile devices. We feel like we just want to step away and go, not my circus, not my monkeys. It's not really an option because this is continuing and it's going to continue and it's actually just going to get bigger and bigger. So I think the first step in the solution is just think about it. Even if that's all you take from today, just go and think about it. There are benefits for you to obtain. Just go and see what you think they are. And from there, you can go through the process of understanding the technology that I give up. Identifying the risks that are out there related to the technology and formulating the controls around that.
The health risk?
And the health risk, with the Sahd, I don't know if that's been confirmed. Are you... And that, ladies and gentlemen, in the words of Forrest Gump, is all I have to say about that. Are there any questions?